Hi, everybody. This is Steve Tarter, another edition of Tartar Sauce right here at the Peoria Journal-Star. And with me today, welcome Stan Browning, the Executive Director, for not for long, of the Greater Peoria Sanitary District. Stan, you're about to retire, what, in a day or two? Or
I am. And Steve, thank you for the invitation, and I'm pleased to come and visit with you. And yes, I am closing out my career with the Sanitary District.
And it's been a long career. Stan, you've been... for the folks at home, we'll tell them, started at the as a director of engineering in 1986 and became the executive director in 1990. So you've been at the helm for a while here. And how would you describe the sanitary district to somebody? You know, I was going to ask you that.
Sure. Well, that's fine. And you know, if I can't explain that at this point in my career, I'm never going to get it.
That's right. I think you've got it down.
Yeah, I ought to know the answer to that. Well. The Greater Peoria Sanitary District is a utility, and we can identify many utilities, but the one thing that we have in common is that our customers should take us for granted. And in our perspective, we're the folks that collect and treat sewage so you don't have to.
Very good.
And most of us want to know that we're there and somebody else is dealing with sewage, and as long as that's working, we're happy. And let me also say, working, and we feel we're paying a fair price for the service we're getting. If those two things occur, then we're doing our job, and our customers are pleased.
What are the biggest challenges that you've faced in your time at the sanitary district? Because I'm thinking most people, as you say, don't pay attention to this. Mm-hmm. It's something they just assume is handled. So what challenges have you faced in those? Oh, let's see, 27 years that you've been executive director.
27 years as executive director, and I think the focus that I have and we have at the district is to recognize that we're here to stay. You might say, how long will we be collecting and treating sewage? And I'll say as long as we have people, and that's forever.
Right.
You know, from our timeline,
it's a permanent thing.
It's here to stay. So when you put that in the context of a utility, all of the assets that we need to provide the service need to be installed, maintained, and rehabilitated from the perspective of it needs to be here for the next generation and the generation after that. So from our perspective, we came into existence in 1927. That was the organization of the sanitary district, and we started constructing assets at that time.
But now, prior to that, what was going on in Peoria?
Sure. Well, clearly Peoria existed in 1927,
mm-hmm.
and there was significant population and industrial and commercial activity. There was no sewage treatment, period.
It was just going into the river.
There were sewers in the ground. There was plumbing in buildings, so we had indoor plumbing, and all of that water went right to the river. Yeah, and that's not unusual.
No.
Peoria is no different than any other community
mm-hmm.
in the United States at that time.
Sure.
There just was no sewage treatment. Now we can all appreciate that living conditions in the 20s and prior to the 20s weren't what we enjoy today in terms of a clean environment.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking here water and public
mm-hmm.
health and waterborne diseases,
mm-hmm.
but clearly air pollution would be along with it if we...
And Peoria was pretty heavy industrial along the river. I mean, you're talking about, I don't know when Prohibition kicked things down a notch, but certainly prior to that, they lined up along the river.
Very much so. And that's what Peoria is noted for, clearly, is our access to the Illinois River and our brewery industry and all the support industry that went along with that. We would have been heavy water polluters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the community recognized that in the 1920s and supported a sewage treatment, period, cleaning up our environment from a water perspective. And the sanitary district exists under Illinois law. Now, other states will have similar laws. So we are a sanitary district. We're a special unit of local government, of which we understand Illinois has many. We are one of those, and we have one purpose, and that's the collection and treatment of sewage.
Now, people, and we talked about this a little bit before we started. Folks who live in Peoria, the Peoria area, been paying attention to city council or some of the newspaper stories, the TV stories that have been out there. They're hearing about CSO, combined sewer overflow. This has been going on for some time. How do you work that into your equation? There's a difference here between Peoria and the sanitary district.
Yes.
Why don't you define that for us?
Yes, and let's follow history here. So the sewers that existed were prior to the sanitary district being organized in 1927. The sewers that existed were owned and operated by the City of Peoria. They were combined sewers. They still are combined sewers, meaning that the one pipe carries stormwater and sewage. And the district, its first construction project was to construct a pipe that was sized to collect the dry weather flow, which would be the sewage component, and convey that to the sewage treatment plant that's at Dark Street. Now, both of those assets exist today.
And we should probably interject here that the idea of one pipe for two purposes, rainwater, stormwater, and sewage, is pretty common around the country. Older cities, or how do you define that?
Yes, that was common engineering practice for that time.
For that era.
Yes. So many of the major municipalities have combined sewers, still have combined sewers, and there's nothing unique about Peoria from that aspect. So the combined sewer system then, when it rains or when there is surface water and it exceeds the capacity of the district's conveyance capacity, then that's what generates the overflow.
And goes right into the river.
The combined sewer overflow, yes.
And that's what the EPA has been saying, not just to Peoria, but other communities as well. But Peoria is, I think, long-standing. Hey, we got to fix that problem.
Yes, and what I think we need to remember is that this isn't the first time we've heard of combined sewers. The issue of combined sewers really was a component of the Clean Water Act in 1972. So what I think of as the first round of combined sewer overflow improvements were really talked about in the late 1970s and through the 1980s. And when I started with the sanitary district in the mid 80s, the actual work to be completed was defined at that time, and the construction occurred in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Again, that met the EPA regulations at that time. Now, as we all recognize, environmental standards are becoming more stringent for a variety of subjects, and I think we need to expect they always will. So the current combined sewer overflow subject really came from EPA policy dated 1994, and that now has come forward to require further improvements to reduce and eliminate combined sewer overflows.
How do you've probably studied this just by virtue of being in the position you've held, talking with Stan Browning, who's been executive director of the Greater Peoria Sanitary District for 27 years and is now just stepping down this month, this year. But you're going to stay on and help I think Brian Johnson, who's following you in this position. In that time, how does Peoria stack up against other communities in terms of sanitary handling its waste?
Yeah. We have been proactively managed historically. The Board of Trustees, I think, have always recognized a need to meet our obligations and look forward and anticipate and be ahead of regulatory needs, community expansion needs, clearly, one of our missions is economic development, in addition to what the obvious protection of public health. But one thing or one aspect that I think is often overlooked is the necessity of a modern sewage treatment system to support economic development. You can't have growth without a sewer being available.
Right.
So I think the management, the direction the trustees have always had is that we want Peoria to thrive and be successful and grow, and sewage collection and treatment needs to be a component of that.
Is that becoming increasingly expensive? Because of, I'm guessing everything goes up in price, and I don't know to what extent you're working with an older infrastructure. How does that work?
Yes, and prices do go up, and they're going up for us in Peoria, and again, I think for every utility, and there's a couple of factors there. One is clearly the age of the system, and I indicated that our oldest assets now are approaching 90 years old.
Wow.
Now, we think of sewer pipe, which we have a lot of lasting between 75 and 100 years. So we're near the end of our first installation of pipe, and we've developed programs to address those and rehabilitate and sustain to meet our mission of having an asset that's here forever. So we've recognized that and set up funding streams to provide for it.
Are some communities doing it? Well, I mean, we know how Peoria is dealing with it. At least in the CSO thing, they want to do the green approach, where they try to capture as much rainwater, and people are going to learn more about this, I guess, as they get their tax bill from the stormwater utility in June of 2018, and find out that if I have a large driveway or a large property area that water can run off, you're going to be paying more. And I know this isn't anything to do with the sanitary district, because this is the city utility, stormwater utility. But this is the idea, is to reduce the amount of stormwater we get into that system. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. The current plan to address combined sewer overflows is to manage stormwater on top of the ground, keep it out of the sewer to begin with, and yes, that's the control strategy.
And from your standpoint at the sanitary district and your board, you're standing there sort of observing what the city's been doing and talking about, but you're obviously involved because you've got the infrastructure there, right? I mean, what's the interplay there between the sanitary district and the city?
Exactly, and that's a good point to talk about. The sanitary district clearly has assets that can convey and treat sewage, and to assist the city in meeting their obligation, we want to be assured that those assets are fully utilized.
Right.
From a capture, conveyance, and treatment perspective, that's the district's obligation, and that's how we can contribute and intend to contribute. Yes.
What's been sort of, as you look back on the years that you've been involved with the sanitary district, what do you look at as some of the bigger achievements?
Sure.
That
Yes.
you've had, and maybe you're probably modest and saying, well, the board did it or whatever, but what are some of the ones that the district handled?
Well, I think the issues that we've addressed that come to my mind are what I would say is implementation of combined sewer overflow round one.
Right.
In late 80s, early 90s. That was a significant task for us. We recognize that the 90s were not high development years in Peoria. We were coming out of the 80s when new development was a struggle. And then the growth cell strategy that was developed, partnering with Peoria County, City of Peoria, and the sanitary district to capture growth as there was demand for residential and commercial development. That was an excellent partnership. Yes.
Stan, what do you see as, and I imagine it varies, but what do you see as misconceptions that homeowners or the public might have about the sanitary district, or about the idea of treating sewage, or how do
Sure.
do you hear the things that you wonder, how do people get these ideas,
Yes.
or what are some of the things
Well,
you hear?
We over the last couple of years have been doing some strategic planning, and in our industry, we refer to that as planning for the utility of the future. What do we want to be in the future? And I think it's clear that we as an industry recognize that we have an identity crisis. People don't know who we are and what we do it, or how we do it, and little appreciation for the complexity of it. So
Right.
so when you come back to the concept, but you're a utility and people take you for granted, that is absolutely the case. So we have we have a focus that we'd like to tell our story and create a better awareness of who we do and so forth.
And that's a good point, because I'm thinking some utilities, we're going through a cold spell right now, and obviously you need your heat at home, and so you watch that thermostat, or the bill will come and you'll go, wow, look at what we paid in December or something, and that utility is right up front and everyone's aware of it. Your utility is underground, kind of hidden, as you say, almost by design, obviously.
Absolutely, by necessity. Yeah.
So
sewage runs downhill. I think gravity is our friend. Yes.
the gravity is our friend. There's a T-shirt there somewhere, Stan.
Yeah.
But what do you think the story, when you want to tell your story, or you as you find ways to tell your story, what is that story? Is it just
Sure.
look what we've done, look what we're going to do, or what is the story that you look at?
Yes, I mentioned that most people don't know who we are, and they're fine with that. In my perception, it would be that, so when they write a check to the Greater Peoria Sanitary District, there's the dollar amount that they put on that check must be okay. They're okay with it. They feel like there's good value for the money they spend. If they have interest beyond that and want to know, well, where does that money go and how do you spend it, I would welcome anyone to just call and say, can we come down and see what you do? Because the best,
don't get too many of those calls, though, do you?
we don't. but I'll tell you, everyone that does come and takes a half hour, an hour tour is just amazed at how do you take the sewage from our homes and businesses, commercial businesses and industrial businesses, and make that fit to fish and swim in again.
Wow.
And that's just what we do.
Right.
And it's basic science. It's not it's not that complicated. It's the same fundamental science we all learned about when we were in high school and took biology and chemistry. And I want to convey, and this may be somewhat remarkable, that the process for treating sewage hasn't changed much since the 1920s. It's a biological process, and it's a physical process. Material either floats or sinks, physical separation, or dissolved material is absorbed. It's a food source for bacteria. And we provide an environment where that can happen very rapidly, and that is the sewage treatment process.
And you made a good point that we should probably stress here. Jobs, science, you mentioned basic
Yes.
science. The infrastructure of cities like Peoria, where you're handling sewage, you're handling waste, you're handling water runoff, and not just that, there's many other things too, but let's just say with that, you need people who know basic science. You need trained engineers. You need folks, as you were and are, when you joined the sanitary district. That's an important thing for young people to remember, right? For jobs that, as you said, aren't going overseas. They're going to stay right here.
Yes. There's a couple of things I'd like to cover there. We employ 72 people, and there's a quite a variety of their skills and their expertise. Now we clearly have mechanics, laborers, operators that know the treatment process, but
where's the headquarters or where?
Yes, our administrative offices are at the treatment facility, which is on Dar Street.
Okay.
Generally, think of the intersection of Washington and Western, down in that part of town.
Right.
Now,
Pound, the animal pound used to be down there.
And they got more credit than we did, and they sat in our front yard. Yes.
Well, those of us that have had pets and lived in Peoria a while know where the pound is.
Yeah, if you needed a landmark, well, they're right down there by the dog shelter. Yeah, and there you are. But now that they're gone, and here we are.
Yeah.
But again, the reality of it from our perspective is we are located where Kickapoo Creek joins Illinois River.
Ah.
Why? It's the bottom of the hill.
Okay.
Why? Sewage runs downhill.
There you go.
So that's why we're there.
Yeah.
And
Makes sense.
all of our facilities are there. The administrative headquarters, the administrative office, as well as the treatment facility, and we house all of our sewer maintenance equipment is at that location as well.
Right. So you were in a location that, unless I'm trying to recall exactly what's around there, but distilleries were once up and down that area.
Yes.
In fact,
yes,
there's still, I think, a smokestack or two quite near you that reflects the old distilling industry.
Yep.
Yeah.
For
so
sure.
that's where you are. So you're kind of off the beaten track, you might say, but nevertheless right on where you need to be, by the river, by the creek, sort of in the center of town, so to speak, at least the downtown. With 72 individuals, somebody might say, "Wow, I never realize that many people worked at the sanitary district."
It's and let's talk about who they are and what they do, because again, we can think of the operators and the equipment maintenance, and we're very equipment intensive, but we've got to manage the sewage collection system. So we have engineers and that monitor every time a sewer pipe is extended or replaced or repaired. We keep records of those and verify that the installation meets our requirements, again, because it needs to last forever. We have a laboratory that tests water. Again, if you think of chemistry class in high school, we're doing water analysis for our own internal information to operate the process, as well as compliance, so we can report to EPA and say we're
And you have
meeting
to do that on a regular basis?
Daily basis, yes.
Daily.
Now we have our support staff. Clearly, we send sewer bills. We generate those bills and have the database for all of our customers to generate a bill and send those bills, collect the money, deposit, and make deposits, pay our own bills. So we have a finance department to carry our own bills and collect delinquent accounts. Everybody that sends a bill has problems collecting it, so that's not an insignificant part of our operation.
You got to look at that. If you're sending out a bill, who's going to pay it?
So we have customer service, finance, engineering, chemists,
all in one place.
All of them. So yes, quite a diverse group. Yes.
And what are you going to miss most about that whole thing?
Yeah.
Getting just to explain it all, or just the contact with it, or because you've been involved with it for a while.
Well, I have, and I like telling the story, and I hope that's what you appreciate this morning.
Absolutely.
And the people listening understand. Man, that guy enjoys his job, and I do.
It's evident, Stan. I was say I met Stan, I think, at a Abraham Lincoln dinner, some years ago, a couple of years ago. And I don't know what I was doing there because, I think I'd written a column, and one of the attorneys had said, well, you might want to hear more about Lincoln, so it was good. But I sat at the table with Stan, and you were just fascinating to me because you were talking about the sanitary district as you have here today. And, there were just, I thought, there's a story, because I look at everything as a story for the paper, in my own little minor world there. And there is a great story because now obviously we've gotten into CSO and some of the things that extend into the city and all of that. But just handling this problem with what goes in the river and cleaning that. That's as big a story as you're going to get, I think, in this area. At least the cost of the numbers that I've seen on that are astounding. You know, and $200 million has been bandied about at the city council for some time. We don't know what final cost would be, but it's clearly a big job.
Environmental issues are big dollar items.
Big dollar items.
We may be more familiar with transportation issues.
Mm-hmm.
What does it? Well, I think this is important to keep in perspective. We have recently completed the I-74 improvement through town. You know, and
right.
now we all see that and enjoy it, and it's very evident to us. Well, the combined sewer overflow improvement won't cost that much, but it's not far off.
Right.
So
that's a good point to make. Yeah, people forget how much that road project cost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just that one add-on to it. Yeah.
Right. So this is big dollar items,
and you could almost make the point too that not everybody drives. Everybody uses the sanitary district.
Absolutely, yes.
Is that another T-shirt? I don't know. But we're all about T-shirts here. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah.
But no, it's clear to me that this is something that probably is always going to need. Do school kids get an understanding of this? I mean, obviously, you're talking about basic science, and kids are pretty good environmentalists. They seem to grasp the recycling story pretty well, and at a young age they kind of comprehend the need not to just throw everything away. At least some do. How do you approach that?
Sure.
Would you get into the schools at all?
We have a number of schools that regularly come and bring classes and tour.
Field trip type thing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not every school,
right.
and we don't proactively invite schools to come. Now, we could do that, and that would be a...
Well, you're open to that, though.
Yes. Yeah,
well, we'll just tell you right now, if you're at school, you're on break now, but if you want a field trip, here we are, sanitary district.
And I think for perspective here, I want to convey that we can tailor a field trip or a tour of the facilities to meet almost any age group. It could be junior high, high school, on up through the graduate classes at Bradley come and tour the environmental engineering.
Depending on how much
students.
science you want to give them,
absolutely,
and break that out.
Yeah, and we can structure it to an audience to where they can be intrigued on what we do.
Stan, what about the Illinois River? How do you look at that? It would seem that I know what little I know about it. It's Chicago played a role in initially sending a lot of their sewage, their stuff downstream when they reversed things there. I think around the turn of the century and 20th century, so it'd be 1900. Or in that ballpark, because we saw all kinds of fishing going on in the Illinois River. Still, of course, still exists, but commercial fishing once existed. And then, as you mentioned, the industry and everybody was pumping stuff into the river. How are we doing now with it?
Sure.
What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I'll give you my perspective here. I would characterize the influence of Chicago and Chicago's treated wastewater flowing down the Illinois River past Peoria is not really having much influence today. And what changed that was the Clean Water Act.
Right.
And the effects of that have really been dramatic. Now we all recognize that the Illinois River is not in a condition that we'd like it to be, and the question would be why. And from my perspective, it's more silt,
right,
than the dissolved untreated sewage or residuals from treating sewage. They're not the drivers anymore. We don't have low dissolved oxygen that kills fish because they can't physically live in it. We don't have pesticides, metals, toxic material keeps us from eating the fish like we did at one point. You know, those have pretty well worked out. But again, it's not to say that Illinois River is in a condition that we'd like. So,
right. It's a big job, obviously,
yeah.
to bring that back. Well, we're talking with Stan Browning, who's retiring as executive director of the Greater Peoria Sanitary District. And what would you tell your we mentioned his name, Brian Johnson, who will be following you in the position. What would you tell somebody who's going to take your seat on the sanitary district? What kind of advice do you have for that individual?
Well, the job has a lot of aspects to it, and touches the community in many ways. And I think we just need to be aware that we can contribute in many aspects. And again, I mentioned economic development, environmental issues, Illinois River issues. We need to be a player when we talk about redevelopment of the inner city.
Right.
You might think that falls on city or county administration, but there's sewers under the ground, and we have to operate and maintain them whether there's users there or not. We need to be a partner of inner city redevelopment as well as growth and development on our fringes. So economic development is a big.
That's a big. It's a big assignment there. There's a lot to do there.
There is, and another aspect in my view is, our mission is to continue to provide the service that our customers expect at minimal cost. So an ongoing issue will be, how do we manage our operating costs? And in my opinion, that's take as few dollars out of our customers' pocket so that they have those dollars to spend in other ways.
People will be glad to hear that.
Yeah, that's our mission.
Sometimes that's overlooked when government gets to working on a problem.
Right.
Very good. Well, Stan, hey, it's been great having you as our guest here on Tartar Sauce. So you're gonna keep your hand in, or how do you look at as you look at retirement now? What's your thought there?
Yes, I've enjoyed being part of the community, and I'll enjoy retirement. And while I don't have a specific activity to pick up,
you can work on the T-shirts that I've been mentioning.
Well, yeah, that'd be fine. But if the phone rings and somebody wants a perspective on Illinois River, sewage treatment, economic development, infrastructure.
My guess is, Stan, that with the CSO coming down, and again, I'm not putting this in the hands of the sanitary district because it's the city that's confronting it and dealing with it. But your knowledge of this whole system is going to come in very handy, and we'll probably be calling you if you don't mind.
Well, I hope you do. Yes,
we need our experts out there to tell us what's going on.
Good,
so.
I'd be glad to contribute.
Stan Browning, everybody. Well, thanks so much. I want to thank Matt Dayhoff, who's been at the controls here, gets this program to you, and we'll see you next time on Tartar Sauce.